Welcome everybody to another episode of the SRU podcast with me and my guy Will Royal.
There's a lot I want to talk about on the first game we're going to mention, but we'll get there after we break down this week's 8 people that just came out yesterday. We have a new number one team.
Yeah, new number one team. A lot has happened this weekend in the world of college football. It's been a great 2 weeks, honestly.
Yeah, if you're a neutral, then this was the week for you.
Yeah.
New number one team, a lot of upsets. Kickers apparently can't do anything nowadays unless you're Will Reichard. Shout out. But start off, Georgia is the new number one team in the country. They jump Alabama. What are your thoughts about a new number one, especially in the SEC?
I feel like the number 1 and 2 spot is going to switch often. Honestly, I feel like it's between 3 teams, between Ohio State, Georgia, and Bama. The number 4 spot, we won't actually know who it might actually be at the end until the college football playoff rankings actually start, which is like week 6, week 7.
Yeah, going with the SEC theme, 2 more teams enter the top 10. We have Kentucky at 9 and your Arkansas team at 10 after a really impressive win at Georgia.
Yeah.
3 new teams have entered the top 25. We have Texas, even after losing, as number 21. Penn State at 22. They have a game with Auburn this week. We'll go on that on Thursday. And Oregon coming in back in the top 25. Those who dropped out, we have Wisconsin after losing to Arizona State. Houston losing a very close game with Texas Tech.
Yeah.
And the implosion, Notre Dame. But again, we'll talk about that later in the episode. We have 3 teams that really moved up in the ladder. Tennessee, BYU, and Kentucky all climbed up high, and then we have Baylor dropping to 17. And then we just have Texas A&M dropping from 6 to 24.
Yeah, I know Desmond Howard's looking a little silly right now. That's an 18 spot drop.
But that is the new top 25, and I'm sure you want to lead off with the introduction to our first game.
Yeah. Well, right before that, like, a lot of these teams dropped or moved up by a huge margin. You got Kentucky moving up 11, BYU moving up 9, Tennessee moving up 9, and Baylor, they dropped 8, and Texas A&M, like we just said, dropped 18. It's been a crazy week for sure, and one game that was really crazy because everyone thought it would be a wide margin win between Alabama and Texas, but unfortunately Quinn Ewers got injured early, and maybe the game would have ended differently with another team on top if he was healthy the entire game. I know your family was divided last weekend or this weekend in that game.
Yeah. And, of course, we're now going to hear the narrative, what we heard in 2010 when Colt McCoy got injured in the national championship game. What if Quinn Ewers stayed? Yeah. What if he did not get injured? But Hudson Card came in. He actually did decent, I thought, as a backup. And I think going forward, Texas is going to rely more on him. B.J. Robinson didn't perform to a standard, but he still had a touchdown. And then you had Xavier Worthy and Jordan Whittington, taking over the show in receiving for Texas. Bama-wise, oh, God, where do I want to start? Because this is an imposter team that we saw in Austin this weekend. Bryce didn't look as good, but, of course, he had that one good play at the end where he dodged a tackle, ran about 20 yards, getting field goal range. It's really saying something when our top receiver is our running back. It was Jahmyr Gibbs. He had the game-winning touchdown. Defense just, oh, God, that was just, I don't even know how to describe it other than Will Anderson did not look like himself. And there was a point in time where he committed I forgot what it was. It was unsportsmanlike conduct. That's what it was. An unnecessary one of that. He just pushed a player down, cost us 15 yards, and when it was a third down. Penalty-wise, we gave up 16 penalties for over 100 yards. To say lightly, Sunday was probably brutal for Bama players. They've been running ever since. And to feel bad for anyone, it's Louisiana Monroe this weekend because they're coming to Tuscaloosa, and they are going to have a hell to deal with.
Yeah, I feel bad for Louisiana Monroe for what they're going to experience this weekend, especially because Nick Saban, I know he was fuming that entire game. And
yeah, I even tweeted out, like, I would hate to be in that locker room at halftime. And you could even see on, like, if you paid attention to the end of the game, you just heard him shouting, "Don't do that bleep," when Bama players started doing horns down when the clock ran out.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, he was pissed off, and I don't even know really who to blame on this. I mean, the players just I think they were more of like on that still high from beating Utah State. It's like, okay, we just do this. We're gonna do this to Texas. Not the best play calling, of course. You know me, I hate Bill O'Brien. I'm gonna blame him as much as possible.
Yeah.
But I think because it's not that far away, but our next big game is going to be Arkansas.
Yeah.
First week of October.
I was going to say something about that because if Arkansas continue on the trajectory we've been on now, that could be a college game day. Probably that game could decide who wins the SEC West. And who makes it to to Atlanta this winter.
Bama has 2 pretty easy games before that. We have Louisiana Monroe this week, and then Vanderbilt the next week. So
yeah,
I think it's more of learn from our mistakes, use that to use Vandy and Louisiana Monroe to repair, and then come to Fayetteville October 1st, and that's going to be a good game.
Yeah,
I mean, 3 weeks out, it's going to be a good game.
But thing about Arkansas, the week before we're playing Texas A&M in Arlington. Hopefully, I can go to that game. I'm still looking at the ticket prices and everything, but yeah, hopefully I can go to that game. So next, we're going to a game where I thought it would end a lot differently than what happened with Kentucky and Florida. Well, Florida, maybe they just had some Irish luck or something the first week because AR-15 did not look like himself or what we thought he would look like. And Will Levis, maybe that mayonnaise and coffee is like some super serum because he played pretty well too. That game.
This is the Kentucky team without Chris Rodriguez. He was rolled out the day before. And, you know, a lot of people were pointing that more towards the Florida win. But Anthony Richardson, like you said, did not have a good game. He threw 2 interceptions. Will Levis had a nice amount of yardage with, if I can pull up the standings, or the box score, like he had 200 yards. Ground control did good with Smoke. But I'm not going to discredit Florida. They're still a good team.
Yeah.
You know, Trevor Etienne, younger brother Travis, I think he's going to be a good backup role in grounding when it's not Anthony Richardson. But I think this is more of what we kind of expected from Florida. I mean, going in, this wasn't a Florida team we weren't going to expect to, you know, come out of the gate, beat Utah. But they did beat Utah, and they put up, for the most part, a good fight with Kentucky.
Yeah.
But now I think going forward, Florida is kind of humbled now, if you want to put it that way. But I think with this, they're still a good team, but I think they're going to stick around between 15 and 25 throughout the remainder of the year. They'll probably drop another game with Georgia or Tennessee. But I think this is realistically a team we can expect to see with both.
Yeah. Kentucky looking like a team that could possibly beat Georgia and make it to the SEC championship. I feel like it's going to be between them and Tennessee. That's going to be their job to beat Georgia and try to make it to Atlanta this winter. So the next game was a great game, and it saved me from our pick'ems. We'll get to that after all the things we talk about. But the BYU Baylor game, I did fall asleep at the end of that game. I had a pretty long weekend. I was in Fort Worth for the TCU Tarleton State game. I'm gonna have a few pictures and maybe a video at the end of this video. Of the podcast. But yeah, it was a great game.
Yeah, and I actually did stay up till 1:15 to watch the ending of this one. But it looked at the very ending, and no team could kick a field goal to save their life. And it went double overtime. Both of them missed field goals until BYU was able to score. For the most part, BYU, because you got to remember, they're an independent school. They don't have a conference. but they're mostly lining up with Big Ten schools. I think there's a couple Pac-12 they have Oregon on their schedule. I think it's this week. But Jaron Hall actually looks like a good quarterback. Like obviously he's no Zach. What am I blanking on his name already?
Zach Wilson.
Yeah, he's no Zach Wilson, but I think it's a good start for BYU. Credit to Baylor; they were a top 10 team coming in. They're still ranked. Braden Sharpen is still a good quality quarterback for them, but at the end of the day, BYU I think is like a better program going forward, and I'm kind of excited to see where they go.
Yeah, and we actually play them later in our schedule, and that should be a big game also. And we have to actually travel to Brigham Young and play them, so I'm kind of nervous about that game. But our next game is another great game this weekend, Tennessee and Pitt. That was a great game because last year it ended a lot differently than what happened this year. But because this year Tennessee took the dub.
Yeah.
But it's Pitt really showed that them not having Kenny Pickett and Jordan Addison this year really hurt them. And Hendon Hooker is still looking great. Maybe he could be a dark horse Heisman winner. We'll see what happens when they play Alabama. I feel like that will be his Heisman moment game if he has a good game and can beat them.
Yeah, or you could say the same thing when they play Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hendon Hooker threw 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's impressive on that own, especially a team like Pitt. Kaden Slovis, got injured. We had to see a new quarterback come in with the name of, if this one's still load, Nick Patty, who actually wasn't that bad. He threw, only 80 yards, but he still threw a touchdown, which is something.
Yeah.
But I think more or less, I'm trying to remember what I remember from this game because it obviously went to overtime. It was a close game, but Tennessee is slightly getting a little bit more scary.
Yeah.
And going up around Tennessee fans, you can tell you they're not the most nice.
Yeah, for me, I say they are the Cowboys of college football because they think every year is their year. Tennessee fans, I don't really like them at all, and I actually hope they have a terrible year so I don't have to hear none of their mouths at the end of the year. But
yeah, I'm just saying, Tennessee has not beaten Alabama since 2006. They've never been able to tweet off an iPhone that they beat Alabama.
Yeah.
All I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, but we have some fun games to talk about because
I know we talked about Iowa State in our preview, but that game was so boring. We're just gonna skip over it.
Yeah, Iowa didn't bounce back offensively like we thought they would, so sucks for them because honestly, they're probably gonna have a terrible year this year. I thought they would have a pretty decent year this year, but the Sun Belt. Is it the Fun Belt, Will?
Sun Belt, Fun Belt, all the way. Let's run it.
Yeah.
And we're going to start off with the first one that I want to talk about, and I'm going to laugh this is the one where it made me smile the most.
Yeah.
Appalachian State, a tiny college in Boone, North Carolina, flying all the way out to College Station, the number 6 team in the country, the number 1 recruiting class, and they beat them.
Yeah.
It wasn't the biggest of victories with these other games, but still.
Yeah, it's a upset. Like Desmond Howard said, Texas A&M is going to make the playoffs. Everyone's thinking that Texas A&M, this can be their year to make it to the national championship. Jimbo can show he can recruit and coach, but it looks like he can only recruit. I actually wanted Texas A&M to win this game just because week 4 we play them, and I want to have a big spectacle of Arkansas beating one of the best teams in the country, and we're going to have the year that I think we're going to have and lose probably 1 or 2 games this year. But they lost. And I love it just because I don't like Texas A&M. They are old Southwest Conference rivals. And who knows, hopefully I don't see them bounce. Well, they're going to bounce back, but I don't see them making the playoffs. New Year's Six Bowl maybe, just depends on if they can win out or like at least lose if they lose one more game, they could probably make it. But they have to play Arkansas week 4. And when do they play y'all, Will?
Week 6.
Oh, yeah, and they have to play them week 6. So those are 2 games that they potentially will lose. And what, Appalachian State got like a $1 million and like 25.
We'll talk about the money
like
later.
That,
but
just to lose.
This was Hayden King, Hayes King, the supposed new savior of A&M. He put up a 21 QBR.
Yeah, that's piss poor effort right there.
Yeah, and the funny part about this, and I saw this all over Twitter, was that Chris Fowler or the game day crew eventually was saying, we're going to come to College Station this week because it's going to be, a top 15 matchup with A&M and Miami. Appalachian State came into this game, beat them, and are now having College A&M come to Boone when they play Troy.
That's actually real crazy, just because who would have thought that College Game Days going to Boone, North Carolina for Detroit, they won their first game, right?
I think so, but They just want to be in that environment.
Yeah, just to see how it is. They have a nice environment. I've seen like the pictures of the stadium and the nature around it. It looks really nice, but who would have thought Appalachian State's getting a College Game Day? And next, we have a team that me and you talked about, and we're like, hey, they took a L week 1. If they went out, they could potentially make it to the college playoffs. But guess what? They did not win out because they lost. Notre Dame lost to Marshall. And Marshall is looking like the team that they were last year, which they had a pretty good team last year. But Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman, I know that the boosters are like, why did we pick this guy? And also, their quarterback also got injured in that game.
Yeah, that's right. Buckner got injured. We had to see Pine come in. But this is the first time ever we've seen a Notre Dame coach go 0-3 to start his career. Because remember, he's coached their bowl game against Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
But this is a team that also got paid over $1 million to come to South Bend. And they lost. Like, they gave up 200 yards just on the ground.
Yeah, I think I was watching ESPN. They were like, their streak for wins over non-ranked opponents just ended this weekend just because they lost to Marshall. But
they were number 18 in the country. They essentially bringing this team from West Virginia come in. They give up, over 300 yards of total offense. They lose by 5, and it's not good. Like, obviously, we're not going to rush to say we're going to fire Marcus Freeman after 3 games and still no win.
No, I think his job's secure for a little while. I don't see Notre Dame don't usually just go through coaches like that. But I was saying to my cousin this weekend. Oh no, I wasn't saying this to my cousin. I was saying it to I forgot who I was talking to. I was saying it to someone, and I was like, "Hey, this was a Randy Moss revenge game because if you know the history of Randy Moss." He was going to Notre Dame before he got into trouble when he lived in West Virginia. And he ended up going to Marshall. And actually, he was a Heisman contender and lost to Charles Woodson.
Yeah, 98.
Yeah. But, that game, hey, Randy Moss got his revenge without playing, I guess. But the next game was the game that broke the straw that broke the camel's back for their coach. Nebraska losing to Georgia Southern. Nebraska. Hey, I'm pretty sure we talked about this when we did our Big Ten review at the beginning of the year. Hey, Urban Meyer could be a great hire for Nebraska just to get their program off its feet from being bad for so long.
Yeah, but this was essentially the game that got Scott Frost fired.
Yeah.
Never have we seen a coach fired after 3 weeks.
Yeah, It's not even 3 weeks; it's 2. But technically, it is.
Normally, if you're an athletic director, you wait till October 1st.
Yeah.
So the buyout clause would be cut in half.
And guess what? They're paying that $15 million to get him out.
Yeah, they want him gone now.
Yeah, that honestly,
Mickey Johnson's coming in, take over this dumpster fire.
Yeah, honestly, I would have just kept him for the rest of the year. Then like you paid him for this year, and you don't have to pay him anymore.
But at this point, I would have waited for the October 1st deadline.
Yeah, you could do that too. But like, hey, he's basically a Nebraska legend because he played there, and I'm pretty sure Did they win the national championship with him there?
In the late 90s era under Tom Osborne, yeah.
Yeah.
But we are so far removed from that era.
Yeah. So it's crazy that a Nebraska legend got treated this way and got fired so quickly into the season. But the Sun Belt, they got paid $4.17 million just to beat these top teams except for Nebraska. But
as a collective, 4.17, over $1 million each.
Yeah.
And like, this is the part about Georgia Southern I'm going to talk about.
Yeah.
Their quarterback, Kyle Van Treese, threw over 400 yards.
On a Power 5 defense, he threw over 400 yards.
At Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how to describe how bad Nebraska's been. He never had a winning record under Scott Frost.
Yeah,
I've seen Nebraska fans on social media want to bring back Bo Pelini, and I've seen their short list of coaches they want to bring in, and I don't think any of them are going to work out.
They were some
Bill O'Brien leave Alabama.
Yeah.
Hey, on that short list.
Honestly, that might be the hire for next year. Bill O'Brien.
Please, get some off my hands. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, and y'all can get Scott Frost because Alabama loves picking up coaches who got fired. Did you see that little segment this weekend?
Yeah, of all the former coaches.
Yeah. So, hey, Scott Frost, he could be future Alabama coordinator or whatever.
Just an analyst, just sitting on the outside.
Yeah.
But, oh, God. Going forward, the Sun Belt, I think, is going to be a team that's going to give us that New Year's Six Bowl. If it's not an American or Mountain West, it's the Sun Belt. 100%.
Yeah. We actually have to talk about our pick'ems. So, right now, overall, me and Will are 9-3. Last week we went 3-2. And one game saved me was the BYU Baylor game. And what was the game that saved you? The Kentucky-Florida game.
Kentucky over Florida.
Yeah, because I picked Florida. So this week we should have JP on as our special guest. We're going to try to get that all scheduled out and planned out for y'all. But look out.
Sorry, we did not have a guest last week. We were giving respects to the Queen of England.
All right. but look out for Friday for the next episode of SRU Podcast. Make sure y'all like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. And see y'all Friday.
Yep.
Peace.
Peace out.
Let's go.